Does the U.S. anti-doping agency have the authority to strip Lance Armstrong of his Tour de France victories?
Well, it probably does. Lance Armstrong, by being an American athlete, has to abide by U.S. law, which indicates that the U.S. anti-doping agency has a tremendous amount of discretion in the penalties that it assigns to athletes who it believes have doped or committed other infractions. Now, Lance Armstrong, of course, is going to argue, and he hopes that his union, the UCI, will argue that no, the U.S. anti-doping agency doesn't have this jurisdiction, and this could wind up in the International Court of Arbitration for Sport.
Well, now, can Lance Armstrong sue the U.S. anti-doping agency if it goes ahead and strips him of his titles, even though he is not fighting the charges against him?
He can, but I don't think it would prevail. And I say that because, one, courts would look at him and say he didn't avail himself of the arbitration option, although he would say the U.S. anti-doping agency has a 58-2 record in arbitration, that he wouldn't have got a fair hearing, but he didn't avail himself of that. And secondly, he's already sued them and failed. He tried to sue, arguing that his constitutional safeguards were violated. A judge said, no, they haven't. The U.S. anti-doping agency has this authority. Unfortunately for Armstrong, his legal options seem limited unless the UCI can involve itself. So
how is this going to get settled then?
I think what happens is that Armstrong will take a back seat for the time being, that the UCI, the Union for Cyclists, will intervene and argue before the Court of Arbitration for Sport that U.S. anti-doping agency doesn't have this authority. It could take months, maybe even longer, before it's resolved. By the time it is resolved, I suspect the story won't be as prominent. Armstrong will continue to insist he's never failed a drug test, and if no court and no arbitration hearing has ever technically found him liable of anything.
All right, and in the meantime, he keeps his titles, correct?
That's correct, although U.S. anti-doping agency may have a different perspective on that. That appears to be the case.
And very quickly, why do you think Lance Armstrong didn't fight the charges, knowing that the sanctions would be immediate?
So I think his big thinking was, look, if I go to arbitration, I'm going to lose. U.S. anti-doping agency is 58-2. My chances of success are less if I go that route. And if I did that, then the public would think that I doped. By not participating, he can argue, and his supporters can say, look, no one's ever said he doped beyond allegations by the U.S. anti-doping